And if you don't define your life, somebody else will define it for you. Your decision will be making no decision. So you have to decide that I'm going to start doing these things, and you have to take the action to do them. And so for me, when I think about those two things, it's like the result that I want to achieve is happiness. Like I found no other higher bar to live for than happiness. Like what's the point of anything if you're miserable, if it's a grind, if you're hating it, leave me alone, I'm making millions, like what's the point? Like if you're just, a angry, pissed off, wealthy person, billionaire in a hospital that everybody hates, what's the point, right? And you've even hated it and you even hate yourself. What's the point? So for me, the ultimate goal is happiness. And if you look to other people, like the Dalai Lama also says that this is the purpose of life, is to be happy.
Welcome back to the Exploring Podcast. My name is Teja, and thanks to each and every single one of you for making it so far. Now, I know you're coming back every time to learn, to execute, to exploit, and to clone the thought process, and to be able to make a huge difference in your work, life, or business. Now, this is probably one of the most special episodes that I've ever done, uncovering a person's life journey on becoming healthier, wealthier, and happier. And I'm really excited about this conversation because the guest is not only someone that I highly respect as a teacher and as an educator, he's someone that I deeply respect as an incredible human who always keeps vulnerable to express his deep thoughts and intentions that could have a massive impact on the people around him. Definitely, in a very short time with all of his courses, he's someone connected to me so deep in a way that I couldn't relate with any other. And people call him Todd, aka So Todd, I'm super excited to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Teja, you're welcome. I really appreciated that introduction, and I have to compliment you. You have a wonderful gift of the gab. You are a great talker. That was a great intro.
Thank you so much, Pat. Your intro is not yet done. I'm going to give you a very blushing intro, so get ready to blush around. Right?
That was awesome.
So Todd is a dad, husband, author, professor, meditator, YouTuber, and an incredible teacher. He is a tenured computer information technology professor in California. He has taught over lakhs of students at colleges, universities, and online. Back in 1997, Todd is one of the earliest professors who got adapted to online teaching and even did postgraduate work in online education at US San Diego. Todd co-founded and taught in the Online Teachers Training Program, which trained professors on how to teach online. In 2008, he was selected as one of the best instructors in the entire California community college system and a champion of world-class online instruction. He is a vivid intersection of business, entrepreneurship, technology, computer science, and health. On top of all of that, he is the one who deeply believes in introspecting and reflecting the best life on becoming healthier, wealthier, and happier. With a consistent passion, he's the founder of Greater Commons and one of the world's leading instructors on Go programming language. And I can't wait anymore to start exploring with Todd McLeod. Once again, thank you so much for being here, Todd. I'm super excited to have you on the show.
Oh, I like what you're doing here. I'm excited for you in this podcast. Awesome. I think that that's really important, what you just said, to seek out wisdom and to seek out guidance. And that was something that I was hungry for when I was young. And how old are you, Teja?
I'm 21.
21. That is so awesome. So when I was your age, that was definitely something I was hungry for. And there was no World Wide Web. There was no World Wide Web when I was your age. The internet was there, but we didn't know about it. And we didn't have access to those resources. So it was really hard to find that kind of guidance or to find wisdom. And I think it's one of the most important things, right? This is one of the most important things that any individual, but particularly individuals who are at the start of their life, the start of their adult life, one of the most important things you can do is learn how to make good decisions. Like we're thrust into life and, first we're put into school and it's crazy, but we get put into school and they teach us all this stuff and they expect us to learn all this stuff. But you know what they never do? They never teach us how to learn, right? Yeah. They never say, this is how you learn. Like the most fundamental basic things, they don't help us with our study skills so often. If you get a really good teacher, they will start showing you that stuff. But like so often, it's just like, here's the history book, here's the math book, here's the literature. Start learning, and they never show us that there's ways to learn more effectively, like the fundamentals and the basics. And so that's one glaring oversight, one gigantic flaw, at least in our society here in the West. I don't know what it's like where you're at. But they just expect us to learn, and they never teach us to learn. And likewise, just to riff on this a little bit more, likewise, they never teach us how to make decisions. And, like when you're young, you have to sort of make some really heavy decisions that are going to set your direction. And how do you do that? I was overwhelmed. When I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I was overwhelmed. I was like, wow, there's so many possibilities. There were so many possibilities, so many opportunities. Did I want to go into construction and build houses? Did I want to make movies, right? Like, did I want to write books and be an author? Did I want to go in and be a doctor? Because, being a doctor, that could be pretty cool and respect and good pay, but there were so many options. I couldn't make a decision. It was really hard. And so seeking out that wisdom, learning how to learn, learning how to make decisions and choices, and how to find your path in life, because, that could be a pretty big knot to untangle. Actually, how do you make decisions? Because it's more of an iterative process than a one-time choice that some people could do that, but learning that is really fundamental. Seeking out people for guidance, learning wisdom in life so you can live more skillfully. Like, what does it take to have a fulfilling life? What does it take to have a meaningful life? What's the answer to that? Because we all want to build lives where we're happy. Right? Like, we want to be happy. We want to have a meaningful life. We want to have a fulfilling life. We want to have joy. We want all those things that they show us in beer commercials, right? Like a good time with friends.
Exactly.
Happiness, love, acceptance. Like, we want all of that. And, how do we get it?
That's the question.
And so I really commend you for what you're doing and having this podcast, and seeking out wisdom and trying to help people find this deeper knowledge that's going to allow them to be healthier, wealthier, and happier. That's kind of like my catchphrase. Like, dude, let's be healthier, let's be wealthier, and let's be happier. Because when you look around, can I cuss on this podcast?
Yeah, totally.
Because when you look around, like, a lot of people are fucking that one up, right? A lot of people are not healthy. They are not healthy. And then wealth. Likewise, a lot of people aren't wealthy. And I'm not just talking about financial wealth, though that's part of it. I'm talking about wealth in the 4 areas of health. I call it the 4 areas of health. You want to be wealthy in friends and family. You want to be wealthy in your health. You want to be wealthy financially. You want to be, wealthy in all measures and metrics. So you want to be healthy. You want to be wealthy. And you want to be happy. So how do you get on point? How do you make that happen? And when you look for those answers, you start to find them. Like, those answers are out there, but they're not taught, right? So recently I've realized this is something I really like teaching, and I commend you for teaching it. And so it's great to be able to share it. And the world's in a bit of a crisis. I'm just starting to go off here, but right, there's when you look at the research on it, democracies since 2004, 2005 really started to be challenged, and particularly so in the last 4 or 5 years. That's disconcerting. That new Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, really speaks to the ramifications of all of us getting filter bubbles and being fed back what we already believe and not having to look at contrary opinions. So it just reinforces certain viewpoints and creates partisanship, nationalism, and, divided mentalities between people. Like, the world's troubled, but at the same time, there's bigger issues there with that. But at the same time, I think it's also important for each of us to kind of know individually what's it take to live a meaningful, happy, fulfilling life.
Yeah. And
my
also,
Zoom just told me, thank you for choosing. Go ahead. I don't know what Zoom just told me. Zoom just told me something.
That's okay, but
You got a dog, dude. Dogs are awesome.
yeah, I love them. I just wanted to be with, but this is the time that I actually go out for a dog walk.
Oh, yeah.
So it's early in the morning here. So she's just worrying about me because I'm not being with her for a little longer than usual, right?
Yeah.
So that's okay. That's not an issue. And, I'm really, really, I'm so lucky to actually find you when I'm actually, rambling around the internet. I'm finding the best course to actually, understand the Go language. And once I got into your course, and the thing that I found is not just Go language. It's all about different perspectives of life. I never thought a Go language instructor could actually teach me not just a Go language, more than and beyond Go language. I didn't see an instructor teaching about life, about the way we be and the way we actually move forward in life. And that course is not just about language. It's more about life as well. Like that just blew my mind. And then that's where I started looking about your courses and your work and your way of actually teaching and making them people understand the things. And that literally pumped me up to actually reach you out. And it's been almost 3 years that I've been following you and then looking up all of your work. Then finally I started this podcast and I reached you out. And I'm so grateful and super excited now to have a conversation with you. That's incredible for me, and that's how it went up. And the work that you have been doing is fascinating me from years, and I've been following it. And one of the most favorite one of your works is the journey. So the journey you made in greatcommerce.com is the one that literally made me to learn a lot. And I usually go through them very often. I go through them and I see them and I share with my friends. That's where he spreads the wisdom. And that's what we need. And that's what it's the one which is core for making decisions, is what's the core for making things forward, right? So it's amazing. And thank you so much, Todd. Thank you so much for all of your work. And thank you so much for being here.
Well, I'm glad to help, and I'm glad to pass it on. And, I've learned much of what I've learned, and I am where I am in life because of the help of others and because others shared their wisdom with me. Granted, I had to seek it out, and I had to try to find it, and I had to want to learn it. And that's not always an easy journey, but we stand on the shoulders of others.
Yeah.
And, others helped me learn this material. So it's awesome for me to be able to pass it on. Just pass it on.
Awesome. So before we just dive in, the social world is actually confused like me. Like I've been calling you Todd for some time, and Enzo for a while, and then Todd again, right? Because I know you as Todd. And
yeah.
So what's the story behind Todd versus Enzo? Like what was that?
Yeah. Let me say two things just to kind of close up a couple of thoughts on what we were talking about. So one really good resource for learning to be healthier, wealthier, happier, and what truly is important in life and what, gives us a meaningful life and a fulfilling life is to really recognize our social nature as creatures. We are deeply social creatures. And so the longest running study of humans ever is the Harvard study of adult development. And you could go to YouTube and you could YouTube TED Talk, Harvard study of adult development. It's like a 10-minute, 12-minute video. But you'll hear the guy who's running the study talk about the importance of community and also the scientific research behind that, how that is really one of the most important things for leading and living a fulfilling, meaningful life, and a life where you're happier, is to have people that you care about, to belong to a community, a tribe of people that you care about, and that also they care about you. And so it's not about how many friends you have on Facebook or how many followers on Twitter. It's really like, friends and family and the people that you get together with on a regular basis and have dinner with, and that you are a contributing member to the tribe, and that you do your duties and responsibilities to contribute to the tribe, and that the tribe has an implicit social contract, has rules and expectations of behavior, and you have to contribute to that tribe, and likewise others are contributing to that tribe, and then together we are all stronger. Like that is truly our strength as a species, is that we're not the biggest animal, we're not the strongest animal, right? There's multiple intelligences across all species. We certainly have we've scored well in the intelligence category, being able to use the tool, which is the mind, but also being able to collaborate together, being social creatures. That's really one of our strengths. So that's the first thing I want to say before we jump into talking about names and identity. And then the other thing I want to say is you were talking about teaching wisdom. And so I think this is another area where our educational system falls short, in that our educational system will give us knowledge and information and skills, but it doesn't always give us wisdom. And so I came up with this thing because Maslow has his hierarchy of needs. If you study psychology, you could Google that too, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, meaning, at the most basic level, we need air, we need water, we need food, we need shelter. And then when we start to get those lower level needs met, we could start looking at higher level needs like community, like meaning, fulfillment, like, spirituality. So that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I came up with this concept of the educational hierarchy of needs, or the hierarchy of education, or the hierarchy of learning, whatever you want to call it. And it's like 5 pieces to it. Let me see if I can remember them. And so one piece is knowledge, skills, knowledge, wisdom, motivation, inspiration. So that's it. So education needs to give us skills, right? So at the most basic level, you need skills, right? You need to know how to shower, how to dress, how to communicate, how to play nice with others. You need skills, you need knowledge. It's good to know about history. It's good to know about what's occurred before. It's good to know about math. It's good to know to read. So you need, and some of the skills and knowledge overlap. So you need skills, knowledge. But then in addition to skills and knowledge, you need wisdom, motivation, and inspiration, right? Like that's really the whole picture of education. Because, what good is intelligence if you don't have, and what good is knowledge, what good is skills if you don't have the wisdom to use it well, right? And so there's this other great quote by General Omar Bradley, and I can't remember it all off the top of my head, but the quote is basically something along the lines of, we have become nuclear giants, yet we are ethical infants, right? And if we aren't careful with all this technology we've created, our servant might prove to be our executioner, meaning, we know more about killing than we know about living. And so the Omar Bradley, you could Google that quote. It's a tremendous quote. But Omar Bradley, what he's really speaking to there is the importance of not only skills and knowledge, but also of wisdom, right?
Yeah.
Like we got to know what to do with everything we're learning. Yeah. And if we don't use it well, I mean, the human race is like, it's teetering all the time between, sublime and, like amazing, incredible, the species, and also like totally destroying ourselves. And it's a tragedy to see how close we are in so many ways, whether it's, global warming and, climate issues, or war and nuclear arsenals, or, there's some good evidence that COVID isn't a natural disease, but might have come out of a chemical warfare place, like who knows, but I've seen some information on that. So weapons, the environment, politics, social regulation, social organization, right? Like the human species struggle. So those are those 2 pieces. The Harvard Adult Development Study, the hierarchy of education, and then to jump in on identity and names, we could start talking about that if you want, Todd and Enzo, but I don't know if you have any comments on everything I just said.
Yeah, but what's the actual definition of wisdom? Like what it means to you?
Yeah, and it's really an interesting question, because what does that even mean, right? Like what is wisdom?
Yeah.
And where do we find it? And how do we define it?
Yeah.
And how do we cultivate it? So do you have answers to that question? Those questions? Like, okay, skills and knowledge, and then wisdom. What is wisdom? What are your thoughts on that?
My view on wisdom...
Sorry, put it back to you.
I'll tell you my view. Maybe I'm wrong, but what I feel of wisdom is not we learn from books. It's not we get from a video. All right. It's not someone we actually get from, but the wisdom is more over that we could learn from what we have done earlier, because those failures are only failures when you don't learn from them, because when you learn from them, they become your lessons. And that's what you call wisdom. That's what I call wisdom. That's what we take from the past and retrospect and introspect and reflect back to your life. And then you apply it. And that's the only wisdom that I feel. That's the wisdom that you could make the one thing that could take you forward It's not people's thoughts. It's not people, motivations. It's not any other things, but it's the inner motivation that you get when you learn from the past experiences, when you learn from other experiences, and you apply in your life. And that's what. So that's what I call what wisdom is all. So does that sound good? No, I don't know, but that's what I feel.
No, I think that's definitely up the same alley, the same line of thinking that I use to think about wisdom. So wisdom for me, it comes down to, actions and results. And so you're talking about experience. And so experience kind of teaches us which actions led to which kind of results.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And as you have experience, you start to learn more. Okay, this action led to those results, and these other actions led to that results. And so that really leads you to start thinking about like, okay, well, what kind of results am I trying to achieve? And what kind of actions do I want? And so for me, when I think about those two things, it's like the result that I want to achieve is happiness. Like I found no other higher bar to live for than happiness. Like what's the point of anything if you're miserable, if it's a grind, if you're hating it, leave me alone, I'm making millions, like what's the point? Like if you're just, a angry, pissed off, wealthy person, billionaire in a hospital that everybody hates, what's the point, right? And you've even hated it, and you even hate yourself. What's the point? So for me, the ultimate goal is happiness. And if you look to other people, like the Dalai Lama also says that this is the purpose of life, is to be happy. And so, okay, that's the goal. And where am I struggling, and where am I suffering, right? Where is there dukkha, right? To use Buddhism, where is there that tanha, that attachment, and how is it that I could get past dukkha? How is it that I could find, the end to suffering? Like this is the quest that a lot of people have gone on, including a lot of very significant spiritual people have gone on. Is like, what's the meaning of life? What's the purpose of life? And if the purpose of life is happiness and to live with more joy, how do we get rid of the suffering? Where does the suffering arise from? Like that's part of the question is decreasing suffering. But the other side of that is increasing happiness. So the goal is happiness. That's to me the goal I've come up with. And then the actions to get there, I like to think of them as either skillful actions or unskillful actions. And so skillful actions will increase happiness and they'll decrease suffering.
Yeah.
Unskillful actions will decrease happiness and increase suffering. Right. And then in between those two, between skillful actions that, have a good impact on increasing happiness and unskillful actions that have an impact on decreasing happiness, between those two, you just kind of have, delusions where you're kind of tuned out, where you're not really doing one way or the other. And so one of the things that you could do in your life is to take this framework and you could say, okay, I want to figure out how to be happy. And I'm looking for the actions that are skillful, which will increase my happiness. And I want to cultivate those. And I want to not cultivate the actions which decrease my happiness and increase my suffering. And so now you have a really simple framework that you could start to use as a tool, very practical, very applicable. You could start to use this as a tool in your life to live a better life, right? I want to be happy. And you look to see which actions you're taking. What increases my happiness and which ones are decreasing my happiness. Cultivate that which increases happiness. Don't cultivate that which decreases happiness. And in Buddhism, like they talk about this as like, pulling out weeds from the garden and cultivating that which you want to grow. Like don't cultivate that which is not useful in the garden. Pull those weeds out. Pull them out by the root. Get rid of them. And do cultivate those which do increase your happiness. So I think that's a really useful framework. Like wisdom is what's the goal that you're moving towards. So you got to define that. And then what are the actions that you're going to take to get to that goal? And how do you take more of the actions that will get you more towards that goal? And how do you take less of the actions that don't take you towards that goal? Yeah. Now the catch is that you have to think about that both in short-term and long-term thinking. And so in the short term, you might say, man, heroin, opiates, it's so good, right? Totally increased my happiness. I was completely blissed out. Short term, great. You just went to a 10 out of 10 on happiness with opiates. Long term, not so great, right? Like, not going to serve you well long term.
Yeah.
And so you have to balance short-term happiness with long-term happiness. And then you also have to think about, like what different kinds of happiness. Like there's the ecstatic happiness, like of, I don't know, seeing a friend, a really good friend that you haven't seen in a long time, or being reunited with family that you haven't seen in a long time, or going to a rock concert of a band that you really love. It's like, total ecstatic happiness, right? But there's also really chilled out, calm happiness. Like, it's just a contentment. It's a peace, right? Like I'm just at peace with me, with who I am, with what I'm doing, with the people that I'm with. Like I'm loving my life, and I'm not doing jumping jacks and screaming because I'm so, over the moon about it. It's just like every day is good and beautiful, and I'm peaceful and content inside myself. That's like another type of happiness. And so you have to think about happiness, because there's a spectrum of happiness and different flavors and qualities of happiness. And then you also have to think about short-term and long-term. And so you have to balance, right? Passion and practical, and try to make the whole game work. Like, so where you're earning money and supporting yourself, doing something that you love, you're getting the practical and the passion kind of blended. And just on that journey, we spoke at the beginning, how do you make decisions as a young person moving forward? It's more of an iterative process than a one-time decision. You might say, well, I really enjoy this class. And so you start taking more of those classes. Like Steve Jobs famously really loved calligraphy classes. And he just kept taking calligraphy classes. He thought it was awesome and beautiful. And like, to me, I'm like, calligraphy, what are you talking about? But because of that, when he got into computers, right, there were all these fonts that got built into computers from his experience with calligraphy. And it's because he had this passion for calligraphy, and he followed that interest, that when he started doing stuff with computers, he's like, we need more than just one choice for what the letters look like.
Exactly.
Calligraphy is beautiful. We need to make this beautiful. And the entire appreciation of aesthetics kind of got built into the entire, culture of Apple, and making it a beautiful product. And so, it's an iterative process, right? Finding your way in life, and you keep moving towards that which is skillful and which creates more happiness. And you move away from that which is unskillful and which doesn't create happiness. And there's some really good rules of thumb. Again, if you start to intellectualize about this and research it and break it down, like, things that increase happiness, get a full night's sleep. Like your body just does not work well when you don't sleep. Like every night, full night's sleep, right? Like you just have to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the price of admission to having your body working well and to being happy.
Yeah.
Full night's sleep. Too bad you don't get to work more. Full night's sleep. Exercise, right? You gotta exercise. Like 3 times a week, hardcore, high impact cardio. Sign up for some online course with all this COVID stuff. Find somebody, like I'm doing Peloton here in America, and they've got amazing instructors. And, I just dial it up and work out for a half hour, and sometimes it's with my wife. And, so you need sleep, you need exercise, diet. You got to eat well, right? Like you can't eat junk. You got to put, garbage in, garbage out, right? High quality in, high quality out, right? Like back to programming. You got to eat well. So you got to sleep, you got to exercise, you got to eat well. Like eat your goddamn vegetables. Like excuse my language, but eat your damn vegetables. Right? Like come on, people, and get brown rice. And like don't go to garbage fast food takeout. It's like there's a crisis of obesity in our country and around the world. It's getting horrible. And so sleep, exercise, diet, staying hydrated, like get good, clean drinking water, get a filtration system at your house and drink water. You need lots of water, drink it. And then you get those, and then social, like, make sure you got that tribe of people that you love, you care about, that you would die for. Like you would die for any of these people, and they would die for you. And you're a team, you're a tribe, and you live for each other, and you're stronger with each other. And, it's like you're deeply committed to each other, whatever that looks like. You know, and if you don't have that, if you came from a messed up family, you gotta start to find it. You know, and so look for people that you could have good, and take the time to build it. And then in between sleeping, exercising, eating well, drinking water, social, you got to figure out how to make money. Right? And so then, okay, how do I start to make money? And look at you. You're like, okay, I like talking to people. I like learning. I'm going to start a podcast. Maybe that will go somewhere. You never know. Maybe you get connected with me. Maybe you interview Bill Kennedy, and then people are like, we like this guy. Let's bring him over to America and hire him for our company, you know? Right? But you just got to start taking those risks and putting yourself out there and creating things.
Yeah.
And if you don't define your life, somebody else will define it for you. Your decision will be making no decision. So you have to decide that I'm going to start doing these things, and you have to take the action to do them.
Yeah.
So in the United States Marine Corps, this is one of the main things they teach the Marines. You've probably heard me talk about this, is they teach them to be proactive. You assess your situation, you make a decision, you take action, then you do it again. Right? You don't just like, oh, there's so many options. Like, you know what to do now. Like, I've given you like 80% or more of what's important for living a good life. You know, like, you got to have wisdom. And what does that mean? It means figure out what your goal in life is. Happiness is what I came up with. If you come up with something better, get on Teja's podcast and start telling us about it, right? But I came up with happiness. And then how are you going to get to that goal? What actions are you going to take? The actions that get you to that goal are skillful. The ones that don't get you to that goal are unskillful. And I like skillful versus unskillful, because good, bad, right, wrong are very judgment oriented and, you know, kind of almost like damning of the person, whereas a skill is something you can learn. So you get a goal, you figure out what actions will get you to that goal. And then, you know, for me, those things are sleep, exercise, diet, social, family, and then finding work that feeds my soul, where I could also try to make some money from it, and provide for my family. Man, peace, happiness, contentment. And you've seen me, right? Like, it pays off. You know, like, okay, I've kept my body running pretty well. I'm an older dude. Like, I'm pushing up there, but I could still get out and exercise and do stuff and enjoy life. So it pays you back. You got to tend the garden of life. You know, a garden, if it left untended, any produce, any harvest that you reap from it will be chance. But if you cultivate the garden, which is your life, if you tend it, if you water it every day, if you take out the weeds, you know, if you plant the right seeds, you know, that's how you in the future, you're going to realize an amazing harvest. That's how you realize an amazing harvest. That's how you build an amazing life. You consciously take action and tend the garden. You put in the effort. You got to put in effort. You got to put in effort in life. If you just sit on the couch watching TV, eating Fritos, man, you know, you're going to waste away. So the seeds you plant today will be the crop you harvest tomorrow. That which you sow is that which you shall reap.
Cool.
And it's basic wisdom, but people forget it, or they never learned it. That's it. You guys have everything you need. Yeah. We're done.
So one other thing, when
you got it all.
When we also speak about wisdom, and then we relate it with happiness, right? With the unskillful and the skillful thing, which is the skillful one which gives you the more happiness, which is doesn't. You keep it off and you put the weeds off the garden, and then you plant the things which makes you happy. In the same way, I feel not just the actions, but also our intentions. Because when we have ego, we have envy, we have jealousy within ourselves, when we have such weeds in ourselves, I don't think we could do better things coming up. I don't think we could see goodness from others, right? So having the actions within ourselves, taking the weeds off from ourselves also includes the weeds of ego, the weeds of jealousy, and the weeds of all of this could actually take that off, and putting back the plants which gives you more energy, more happiness by the skills that you do, right? That's beautifully said. That's amazing, Todd. And also one other thing I want to ask you, but I see people, you know, relate happiness with success. They speak something that they want to achieve something, and until they get that, they say, I'm not happy. I need to get that, right? I need to be successful to become happy. So I don't think that's true. But what do you say about it?
I think that's one of the great illusions or myths or lies or misdirections. You know, it's definitely an integral part of capitalism to try to convince people that materialism will make them happy. And that the more you have, there's this great quote, it's like unlimited consumption, unlimited success, unlimited work just makes the prospects of your life all that more unlimited, but in a sarcastic way. So I think that's a total, illusion that money will make you happy. So don't fall prey to it. You definitely need a certain modicum of living. You need to meet those Maslow's hierarchy of basic needs. You need to have shelter. You need food.
Yeah.
You need to be happy with the way that you're contributing to society and be compensated enough at a basic level to survive and live. And but beyond a certain level of income, money doesn't correlate with happiness. Like some money, absolutely, you need some money to be happy. But getting new possessions, getting a faster car, having a Porsche or Ferrari, really what that is trying to fill is some void or some hole within someone that is not going to be filled by a material possession, So it's like I need a certain amount of self-esteem or respect, or to be seen a certain way by others, or to be loved. And I think that if I achieve this success or have this much money or have this type of car, then, that need will be met. People will then respect me. People will then love me, but people don't love somebody who has stuff. People don't love somebody who's in power. They might fear them. They might want to be in their good favor to receive rewards from them, but it's not love. So I think that's a common pitfall. I mean, a lot of people fall prey to that, and you do need a certain amount of money, but money at the end isn't happiness. And also, so you were talking about the different kinds of weeds that we could run into. And so jealousy and greed and envy, hate, lust. And so that really kind of brings up an interesting topic. And the topic that it brings up is our shadow or our dark side or our fallibility as humans. And so this isn't about trying to be light-sided, this path, right? And so this is kind of nuanced material here. This isn't about like trying to be saintly or trying to be something other than what we are. Because when we look to what we are the full spectrum of humanity. And each of us get dealt a different hand of cards. And some of us, through nurture or through nature, we're either born with certain characteristics or we are conditioned to have certain characteristics. Each of us have different strengths and different weaknesses, different aspects that are part of our quote-unquote light side and different aspects which are part of our shadow side. And the shadow side might be that jealousy, that greed, that hatred, that envy, right? But that's natural, normal human behavior. And so this isn't to just say, oh, I'm going to hate that about myself. I'm going to deny that. I'm going to turn that off. And what psychology and my own experience I've found is that, you can't get rid of something inside yourself. You can't change something inside yourself by ignoring it, by denying it, right? And if you suppress something and if you just push it away and shove it away, what I found and what others have found is that it doesn't go away. And that the only way that you could change is to truly accept yourself as you are. And so Carl Rogers, one of the most prominent psychologists of the 20th century, called this the paradox of change. And he said, the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I change. Cool. The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I change. And then there's also this guy, Suzuki Roshi, Zen master Suzuki Roshi, who is the head teacher at the San Francisco Zen Center up in the Bay Area, San Francisco, California. He said that you are perfect just the way you are, and you have room for improvement. You are perfect just the way you are, and you have room for improvement. And so just notice that paradox there. Like, you're perfect just the way you are, and you have room for improvement. Like, you don't want to hate yourself, right? You don't want to, belittle yourself and deny certain aspects of yourself and chastise yourself and hate, this aspect of yourself. You want to accept and see everything about yourself. That doesn't mean you act on it.
Yeah.
Right. So I see that greed. I see that envy. I see that hatred. I see that anger. That doesn't mean I take action on it, but I'm not going to suppress it.
Yeah.
I'm going to allow it to be there inside myself. I'm not going to let it out, but I'm going to say, wow, I'm really angry right now. Right. Or, geez, there's that greed within me. Oh my gosh. Right. Like when I feel that greed, I'm really wanting that, and that's really causing suffering for me. Can I feel that suffering? Right.
Yeah.
Or can I feel the suffering that comes from being angry? I'm so angry. They aren't acting the way I'd want them to act. Can I feel that, how angry I am inside myself and how much that hurts?
Yeah.
Right. Because when we just think anger and now I need to be angry and let it out, that doesn't let it out. It just, hurts other people. But if you feel the way it's hurting you inside yourself, then pretty soon you start to realize, okay, that hurts. I don't want to do that anymore. So again, back to Buddhism, the Buddha said, who taught all this stuff, he was like one of the greatest psychologists ever also. But he would say, when you realize you're holding a hot rock, it's natural to drop the hot rock. And so you really kind of have to see those shadow sides of yourself and then allow them to be there. Don't let them out. Right. But then also see, how do they make you feel? And start to connect that greed, that envy, that hatred, that anger is making me hurt. It's a hot rock I'm holding.
Yeah.
Wow, that really hurts. Like really feel that hurt.
Yeah.
And then the curious paradox is that when you accept that about yourself, you change. Right? Because you're like, I don't want to hurt like that. Let's stop doing that. That hurts, And so Carl Jung, another great psychologist, he expressed it in this way. He said, if you want the tree, which is your life, if you want its branches to reach to heaven, its roots have to reach down to hell.
Oh my God. That is so deep. That is so deep. Oh my God.
Yeah. You got to live the full spectrum. Otherwise, you're not living an authentic life. You have to recognize that all of humanity that you've witnessed in every other human on this planet throughout all of history, all of that exists within you too.
Yeah.
And so it isn't to just say, oh, I'm not going to be, envious. Let's pluck that weed out. But it's to recognize it's there and to not act on it. And then that's how they start to diminish. It's with that awareness, that conscious awareness, that acceptance. And then Rumi also has this great poem. You can look it up. And it's called The Guest House. You ever heard The Guest House by Rumi?
No. Can you share about it? It could be really interesting. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I don't have it handy. And if I Google stuff, my mind gets out of talking
That's
mode,
okay.
and then I go into neutral. Kind of for a moment, I started trying to track thoughts, and you asked me about being rich, and I was about to write something down. I'm like, I don't know what the hell to say about that. And my mind kind of went into neutral. So I'm not going to look it up, but this is kind of the general gist of Rumi's Guest House poem. It says, every day, a different visitor. Greed, anger, hatred, delusion, right? They will come into your house with their muddy boots. They will kick in your door. They will sit down on your couch with their dirty clothes. They'll put their dirty feet up on your coffee table, right? Welcome them. Serve them tea. Every day is a different visitor. Today, some joy. Tomorrow, some sorrow. Welcome them all. And so it's that same idea of embracing the full spectrum of life, not expecting life to always be happiness. There will be grief. And the way out of grief isn't to just be I live for happiness. I'm always going to be happy. The way to get to happiness might be that you have to grieve really hard for a year over all of the pain and losses and suffering you've been through in your life. Yeah. Right? And that might be the road to happiness is grief. Grief might be your road to happiness. It was my road to happiness. I went through a period in my life where, man, I was just a wreck emotionally. I was so full of grief. I was crying all the time. I wrote a bunch of books trying to work it out, and then I got through it. And so there's these two other sayings which are really cool along this line of thought. And one of them is to get out of it, you got to get into it, right? To get out of the grief, you got to get into the grief. You got to grieve it until the grieving's done. And at a certain point, you stop, right? But because you don't want to be histrionic. But so to get out of it, you got to get into it. And to get through it, you got to go through it. And so those are, the full spectrum of existence. And the path to happiness isn't it isn't a mandate, a dictate that you must now always be happy. Sometimes you got to follow your wisdom. You got to follow your intuition. You got to say, you know what, right now is the time to be sad. And then when the being sad's done, I'll release that and I'll be back to being happy. And if you look at really like the spiritual enlightened people, like they could feel, like they are not afraid to feel, like they will experience something which is heartrending and they will weep.
Yeah.
And then 30 minutes later, they're back to they're kind of like kids, right? Like kids have a hard time and they just cry, and they have a little temper tantrum. And then 20 minutes later, they're back to playing and having a good time. They let it pass through them. But when you bottle it up, when you become stiff and tight, and you don't let it out, you have that stiff upper lip, that's just like a recipe for being, I don't know, dysfunctional. So...
Oh my God, that's a huge, like a wisdom that people should be taking their notes out and writing all the bullet points, which will literally help them a lot moving forward. So, I mean, that's beautifully said. And, I have one of my friends who is actually working for corporate where she's been working so hard, like financial analyst. All of a sudden, she just turn up to me and she's saying that, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not liking. I don't want to do there. I don't want to work there. And then I asked her, like, what do you really love doing then? Like, what is the one thing that you really like doing more and more and more? Because the morning you wake up, you love doing something. So what do you love doing? So she said back saying, I don't know what I really love doing. So I was just blanking out. So just, I just said her to explore, keep on exploring other things. And then you figure it out. Someday you will figure it out. And then once you figure it out, you just should do it. Because that is a core thing, finding out the purpose, finding out the things, what they're really meant to be doing, right? So I want to know your perspective, like how could someone really figure out their purpose, figure out their things that they really love can be doing? Because the thing, what we do, what we love is the one that we could do forward and is the one we could find getting benefited from them. Maybe we can turn that passion or the purpose into a paycheck as well, right? But how could someone figure that out?
How are you figuring it out? I got my answer. But...
Yeah. Super. Okay. I'll just tell my own version. So I've been, the one thing that I got in my question is that choosing the technology that I love to. So I don't know which I mean, I've been hearing about technologies from different people. They say Android development is the cool stuff, man. They say web skills are the cool thing and the machine learning is the hardest one. And, you write Go language is the fastest and the highly paid job. And everything attracts you. Everything makes you think, choose the highest paid one because I've been biased by money, and choose the big one because I've been biased by fame, right? But I tried it. I've been in that delusion. I've been there. I went down. I started working on Android just because my friends are doing it, just because people are saying me to do just to get some money. I've been doing that, but I don't like that. I'm not liking it. I don't know. So just programming the things and making things done, it may get you money. It's not getting the happiness. So, and then later on, I tried different things, and then I've been looking into the various things, and then I started telling to others as well. When I say that, when I express to other people about what they are trying, what they are struggling, and they're helping them out, so that's where I found my happiness. Well, letting other people know and letting other people understand. So helping them to understand the things is what made me like fun doing it, and then it makes me to learn even more deeper. Maybe anything, right? So teaching and then helping others in a way that they can understand and reaching their brains in an easy way, in a way that 5-year-old can understand, is the one that fascinates me. So in that perspective, when I'm looking into it, one technology like looking into analytics and making some decisions is the one literally fascinated me, literally blew my mind. So that's the thing that I have chosen to be working on. That's the one thing that I figured out by exploring different technologies. And for doing this podcast is actually being like, have these questions, a lot of questions, that how do you people make such a huge impact? What is your thought process? And what is your behind the scenes, your thinking, and the way you do the things? That's what we all need at the end of the day, right? So maybe I should question them. Maybe I should ask them so that I could get the answers. Maybe this should be helping the others as well, not just me. So that is the way, like, exploring different things. And then maybe that would be changing for the next time, as we grow up. And, I'm not the same when I'm in my 8th grade. I just grown up. And then maybe I'm not be the same when I'm being to 35-year-old, right? So it will be changing up. So my way of doing it is let it go. Let it keep explored. And then pick the things that makes you interesting. Pick the things that make you wake up in the morning and keep that running up. So, yeah, that's how I do it.
I think that's a great approach. Is just, I liked what you said, let it go, keep exploring. And that also resonates kind of with how, I found my way in life. Like, I'd say, I would share this story with the woman, that's working in finances. But, part of what I looked to do, part of what I looked for was, what is it that I enjoy about what I'm doing right now? What is it that I don't enjoy about what I'm doing right now? And how can I create my work life so that I'm doing more of the stuff that I enjoy and less of the stuff that I don't enjoy? Yeah. Right. And so, like, what I have to do to sort of arrange my work life so I keep moving towards more and more and more of the things I enjoy, and then looking for the common patterns and themes. So one of the things I noticed, like, over my life was I really like creating. And I think of creating as the work of God. Like, that's what God was into. Like, he built the world, he built all this, if in that story, that mythology, whichever one you choose. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like, it's God's work to create. And I really like creating. I like building something and seeing that it's built. And I don't care if it's a stupid little piece of software, a stupid little program, or a book that I wrote, or a video that I made. Like, it's really satisfying for me, or a poem, it's really satisfying for me, or a little song I created. Like, it's satisfying for me or a podcast, right? Yeah. It's just satisfying for me to be like, I'm going to create something and I'm going to put it out there in the world and share it with other people. Or, just to create it. Sometimes not share it. A drawing. Like, I love creating. And so looking for those common themes, like, what is it that's common that I enjoy in everything that I do? And then moving towards more of what you enjoy. And then also straddling things. And so, you've done that. Like, you have some programming, but then you're like, heck, I really like talking with people. I'm going to do a podcast. And so you do it. Yeah. And so you're maybe still doing your programming. I don't know. But you're also doing this podcast thing. Right. And so you're kind of like, I think of it kind of like as being at the casino of life. You're putting your chips down on a couple of numbers. You're playing you got a couple of irons in the fire. You're making a couple of plays, which is good diversification, right? From a financial standpoint, it's good diversification. There's an argument to be made to really kind of be narrowly focused and to become an expert at one thing. But there's also a really strong argument to be made for, diversifying. Right. So I would actually choose probably some diversification. And the people who end up being most successful, there's a book, I can't remember what it was called or who wrote it, but it talks about this, is, how specialization isn't necessarily the path to success. And, people who have sort of a broad background, broad experience, like Federer. What's that guy's name? The tennis player, Federer. Like, he did all, people think of specialization. They think of, who's the golfer, the young golfer? I'm totally spacing on his name. Black guy, right? Golfer, black guy. You're Googling it. Neither of us can come up with it here in America.
I'm doing it.
Oh, man. I don't know why I'm spacing on his name. He was golfing from like age 3 months old, right? Like, his dad had him. Tiger Woods. Okay, yeah. Right? Tiger Woods? Yeah. Right. And, super highly specialized, killed it, did really well. But then Federer, that tennis player, he his mom is a tennis coach, but she couldn't get him to play tennis, and she wouldn't coach him because he was too wild. And so he did all these other sports, and then, later in life, he said, I'm, like his late teens or something. He's like, I'm going to get into tennis. And now he killed it in the tennis world.
Yeah.
But he had all this diversified experience. So anyhow, there's a real strong argument for diversification. So anyhow, moving towards what you enjoy, what you find in work that you enjoy, move towards more of what you enjoy and less of what you don't enjoy. And then 2, what was the second point I had? Look for the common themes, right?
Yep.
Like all the stuff you do. For me, the common theme was like, I love creating. And then 3, diversify. And so diversification might look like, you got your day job when you're young, you're not married yet. You don't have kids yet. Hopefully. If you do, it becomes more complicated. Right. But, you got your day job and then you do something in the evening. You create a podcast or you teach as adjunct faculty at the college or the university. Right. Like, so from, or whatever it is, you go and you work in a restaurant because you really like food and you work as a cook in the evenings 3 nights a week because you enjoy it, or you wait tables. And then pretty soon you realize, you know what? I like this better than coding. I'm going to start my own restaurant. And that's kind of like, you have to diversify. You got to do the thing you got to do to pay rent, but then you take some of your other time and you do something else that you enjoy. And then don't forget to sleep and eat well and exercise, but enjoy it all. Don't make it like an onerous task, like, and socialize, right? Enjoy it all. Enjoy the whole journey and try to find that overlap. Like you could socialize with somebody when you're eating, you could socialize when you're exercising. You find your girlfriend or your boyfriend and you have, you've got your social when you sleep, you like, good night, you sleep together, you wake up, so you blend them and you overlap them. You work with the people you enjoy, I don't know, the whole deal.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I think those are good answers. For
exactly.
Both of us.
Yeah. I think it should definitely help out there.
If anybody else has any thoughts on that, you can leave it in the comments down below.
Definitely. Yeah. I'll also have your addresses. I mean, maybe your point is for LinkedIn, emails, and everything. Twitter, you will be so much active. So definitely they can DM you right away, or they should DM me as well, sharing their thoughts as well. So that should definitely help me to, find, and maybe we can have another podcast, another episode talking about them. I don't know.
That'd be cool.
But so what about, you also speak a lot about mindfulness and meditation as well, right? And you also mentioned in your principle number 3, I believe, it's maybe about, you mentioned like feel the burn, right? When you see meditation, you need to feel the burn. What's the crux behind it? When you say feel the burn when you meditate, so can you just explain more about how would that relate to burn and meditation? Yeah,
I remember making that video and talking about feeling the burn, but I don't remember the specifics of it. So I imagine what I was probably taught, because that, that just kind of came up organically when I was making that video. But I imagine what I was talking about was, feeling that suffering and just allowing it to be there and not acting on it. Do you remember the specifics of the video?
Not sure. I've been through maybe it's a little long ago. So
So I don't. I don't remember it either. But I remember that really resonated with a lot of people, and a lot of people commented on it. So it gets back to that thing that we already talked about, which is accepting your full spectrum of humanity and acknowledging something within yourself. And so when you're sitting in meditation, you might feel the desire to go do something else. You might feel the desire to get up. You might feel the desire to go get ice cream from the freezer and eat it. You might feel, things that you haven't wanted to look at, right? Because you've been too busy, and maybe they've been what have been driving you to be busy, because you don't want to stop and look back at the way when you were young, your parents were never there for you, or your dad had too much anger, or some traumatic experience you survived, as a refugee from a war, or you knew people that were killed because you grew up in the inner city, and so like all of these hard things might come back to you. But then, instead of getting up, you just feel that, and you feel that burn. You feel it. And the only way to get through that stuff is to go through it. You want to get out of it, you got to get into it. And so you do what you haven't normally done, right? And what normally people are doing is they're focused outward. In meditation, you focus inward. Normally what people are doing is they're busy, right? In meditation, you're still. Normally what people are doing is that they're stimulated. podcasts, music, the world, flashing lights, the carnival of life, barkers, hucksters, right?
Yeah.
All this stuff. And in meditation, you're not stimulated, right? You're choosing to be still. You're choosing to turn inward. You're choosing to not have stimulus so that you can then see what arises. What is important to you? What is trying to be said inside you, right? That you maybe don't want to listen to or don't want to face or don't want to look at. And so you sit down in meditation. You sit down and you give yourself that time to face yourself, to see who you are, to find out who you are, what wants to be said, what wants to be heard, what creatures come out into your awareness from your consciousness, right? And maybe they're going to be scary as hell, right? But you sit there and you don't get up and you breathe and you grieve and you feel it and you laugh and you cry or whatever it is that comes up, right? But you allow yourself time. You cultivate intimacy with yourself. You allow yourself time to know yourself.
Yeah.
And if they're intense, you just feel the burn, right? And so you sit there, you burn, and then you rise anew like the phoenix from the ashes, right?
Yeah.
So you feel the burn. Like you're going to sit there and you're going to freak out. Your mind's going to be like, I should be doing this. I need to get up. You know, how long has it been? I can't take it any longer, right? And your mind's going to be like a fish on the dock by the lake, just flip-flopping in the sun. That's what the mind's going to be like. It's going to throw a temper tantrum when you first start sitting in meditation. Like it's just going to want that stimulus. It's going to want to be externally focused. It's going to want to be doing stuff instead of being still. And so you sit there and you feel the burn. And you see the mind throwing a temper tantrum. And just like with a child, you don't want to give in to that temper tantrum, right? If the child gets what he wants or she wants when they throw a temper tantrum, what are you doing? You're reinforcing temper tantrums. And then the child's going to continue to throw temper tantrums. Same with the mind, right? It's whether it's child's mind or your own mind, when you sit down in meditation and the mind starts to throw a temper tantrum, if you then do the mind's bidding, right? The mind's going to learn and the mind's going to know, okay, you know, the mind is the master. You're not the master. The mind is the master. And the mind will throw a temper tantrum and then you're going to do what it wants you to do. But if you sit there and feel that burn and you don't respond to the temper tantrum, don't give the mind what it wants, then the mind's going to learn that spending energy on throwing a temper tantrum is a waste of energy. And the body's an efficient system. The body doesn't want to waste caloric energy unnecessarily. So the mind is going to learn temper tantrums don't make you move. And the mind's going to start to become more still. It's going to become more calm. And so there's a difference between who you are, your conscious awareness, and the mind. And until you learn to be the master of the mind is the master of you. Until you learn, otherwise, you are doing the mind's bidding. You are doing the bidding of your conditioning, whether it's from nature, what you were born with, or from nurture. You are like a prisoner or a slave. You do not have freedom, right? Because you are doing what you are being told. The mind says, get up. This is too much. I can't take it. What am I doing here? Quit sitting here, right? And you get up. You're a slave. You're a prisoner. You're doing what you're told. True freedom comes when you can make a choice. When you have freedom, you can make choices. If you can't make choices, you're not free. Prisoners can't make choices, right? Nope, you're going back in the cage, right? Slaves can't make choices. Nope, keep tilling the field, right? Freedom from being a prisoner, freedom from being a slave comes when you get to make choices, when you're no longer just following the dictates and the demands of some master, whether that master is external or internal. So when you want to become free from the mind, you have to face the mind. You have to see what the mind's asking you to do. Get up. Quit sitting here. Don't sit in meditation anymore. And then you have to choose. I see you want me to get up from meditation, but I'm going to continue to sit here. And then you feel that burn, right?
Yeah.
You face the mind and you learn to master the mind so that you could then make choices. I see you want me to be really angry. I see you want me to be really angry right now, but I'm not going to let that anger out.
Cool.
Right? I'm choosing otherwise. I'm choosing kindness. You know? And so now you're not just knee-jerk reaction, following habitual patterns of behavior to certain stimulus, and responses as if you're just some programmed machine, right? X happens, that button gets pushed, and you run this program. Now you have freedom. And the way you get there is by feeling the burn.
Yeah.
Is that too far out there? Or did that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I can literally write pages of totally on this, making the conversation and then putting it online, like super. Totally. And also, like, most often what I feel when the deepest, hurts sometimes, when I've been to lectures or college and schools, where the way our teachers or professors who teach us doesn't get to everyone, what I feel, sometimes I feel the lecture is not for me, because that's not the way I learn. Maybe sometimes I feel I'm not getting it, but I don't know. But the thing is, maybe I feel sometimes the professor should be explaining differently from me. Maybe it's not for me, because other people could able to understand it, but maybe I don't. So kind of multiple thoughts happening in my brain. But what do you say about, what would you say to some professors out there to make a fun learning, maybe an interactive learning for them?
Oh, how do you become a better teacher?
Yeah. In a short and scripts way, yeah.
I don't know. Teaching is kind of it's not an exact science, right? It's not like subjective. It's not an objective thing like mathematics, where here are the rules, and if you do these things, you're going to get this outcome, this answer, right? So it's not objective. It's very subjective, and then it's also, it's not one size fits all, because I'm glad my teaching style resonates with you, but I've also had some programmers who are very much like, engineering oriented and not humanistically oriented. Like, I could tell you're a humanistic guy. You like thinking about these things and talking and connecting, but some people are very like, just like, give me the facts. We need to build the system. Why are you telling me about life? You're wasting my time, And so, like, my teaching doesn't resonate for those types of people. Like, and they've told me that. Like, they're like, in your next course, please don't tell all these stupid stories. It's a waste of time. I'm like, okay, thanks. I'll save them for the end. And I learned, right? So now mostly I try to put them at the end of the video if I'm teaching some hard skill. So I'll be like, you can tune out if you want. Go to the next video. I'm going to tell you a story now. So the people who want to hear the story, they can hang out.
Yeah.
So, I think to be a good teacher, you got to be a good student. You always got to be learning. You got to look to, it's an iterative thing. You got to look to see what's working for the crowd and what's not working for the crowd.
Yeah.
And what I found, and maybe this is what other people would find, is that, being able to connect with people is tantamount. And so however you connect with people, and research supports this too, that, connection in a classroom is one of the strongest indicators of student success. And so the more that students, again, we get back to this idea of community, right? We started out talking about the importance of community.
Yep.
The more the students feel a sense of belonging, a sense that they are cared for and that they belong and that others care for them and that they care for others in the classroom. And, the more they have a connection, an emotional connection with others in the classroom, teacher and student, the more they're going to succeed. And so how can you create that human connection? Like, that's one of the core pieces. And so I consciously build that into my classes. And, my online classes, I try to build that in. And then in my in-person classes, likewise, I've got an entire course on it. So if there's people out there that want to be teachers, you could find that course on Udemy. I don't remember what it's called, but it's got an apple as the logo. If you Google Todd McLeod Udemy, Udemy, that's that platform. Yeah. And anyhow, I do have we created the Greater Commons thing, but we couldn't get our hosting costs down. So to make any money on that, we had to charge more for the classes.
Yeah.
I don't know. We didn't figure that one out. So I recommend people just go to Udemy, because the same class but cheaper.
Yeah. By the way, what's the
good question.
The meaning behind like Great Commons? Like, why did you name it that way?
Oh, Greater Commons. It's kind of like for the greater common good. There's a phrase in English for the greater common good, meaning it's for the benefit of everyone.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then it does. Like, it literally does the same thing what it meant to be.
Yeah.
So, and also looking at from another perspective, like we spoke about how to become a better teacher. But what I would like to ask is, if there is a student, you wish that that student shouldn't be like this, right? You shouldn't be like this. So what are those, those bullet points, like you don't want to see a student doing such things, like?
I don't know. That's kind of foreign to me. I haven't really thought about that. Like mostly I kind of have I work with so many students that it's kind of like, I offer what I offer and they could take it or they could leave it. And if I don't work for somebody, that's okay. And if somebody's spinning out and they're acting unskillful and they don't want advice, who am I, right? Like, they'll maybe figure it out. If they do turn to me for, some input because they're doing something that's unskillful, I direct them towards resources, so depending upon the situation, it'd be different resources. So on campus, there's psychological services. So I'll walk students over so they could talk to somebody, if they're having some life challenges. I've had students sometimes, cry about what's going on in their life, because I create this humanistic connection in the classroom. They'll come to me and they'll tell me I'm really struggling, like I'm not doing well. And here's what's happening in my life. I'm like, okay, let's go over and there's some people here who could help. Let's go meet them, walk them over there. Yeah. What's important to you?
Oh, for me.
Go ahead. Yeah. What's important to you? Like, what's important to you in your life? Like what questions are you trying to answer in your own life? Like, how can you make your life, like, what do you need to do to move your life more towards the direction you want to move it? Like, what is it that you need? Do you need more money, or do you need, more success, or, I don't know, do you need more travel, or do you need a boyfriend or a girlfriend? Love, like, what is it that are things that are kind of like, I don't know, what's important to you?
The one that really, I concern about, and also sometimes I really worry about, is that, earning is a part of life, right? We got to earn it to live. So I feel the one thing that I really makes me scary about is that I shouldn't make, what really matters for me is that no matter what we do, I don't want to let others suffer from what I'm doing. So that's the one thing that I really, believe in, and I'm really scared about it as well, because I'm afraid of it, because whatever the action that I do, it may somehow suffers someone else, right? But letting it happen is the one thing that I'm worried about. So that shouldn't be happening for me. Like I'm still figuring out a way, but no matter whenever I make a decision, I still look into other people's perspective, like how would that be affecting to the other person, how would that affecting to the family, how would that affecting the friends, and how would that affecting to the society, and is that a positive effect or is it a negative effect? If that is a negative one, so how could I reduce that? If can't, then let it go, let's leave it, and just for the other one. So that's the one thing that I really concerned about. And yeah. And how about, like, what are the traits that you really wanted to look a student should have? Like, what's your perspective on what is a really good traits that you look for a student to have?
Oh, I want to speak to what you just said for a second, then we could come back to that. But you have a good heart, Teja, right? So you want to earn a living and do it with integrity. Earn a living and do it with integrity, and you don't want to harm others, right? Like, those are really good intentions. That's good-hearted. And at the same time, like, when you become aware, you realize that you have to make your peace with inequity. Mm-hmm. There are inequalities in this world, for better, for worse. That's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. And it would be nice if we did have equality in the world, but there's no way you could ever have total equality. Like, everybody's life, no matter how close you began to approximate that, we're all different, right? And so because we're different, there's no equality. And some of us are, born with some challenges, and some more challenges, and some are born with less challenges. Some are born in better areas, and some are born in worse areas. Right? Like, you have to sort of, like, ultimately realize, no matter how badly we would like it to be otherwise, that's not the game. Like we've been born into this game. We didn't create this game.
Yeah.
And life, this world, it's not equal. And so not wanting to harm others, like, I've realized that I am complicit. I'm 100% complicit in the oppression and the exploitation of many other people. I'm 100% complicit in the oppression and exploitation of many other people. Because I go to the grocery store and I go to Costco. We have this store here in America called Costco. And I buy shoes and I buy a television and I buy my clothing, right?
Yeah.
And, and those things are all manufactured and made by people who are living probably in crappier conditions, who didn't have as good of access to education, who weren't born in a country with as good of an economy, who don't have as many options and opportunities, and who are now maybe as young children or teenagers or even older people working really long hours for really low wages, and they don't have health care, right? Like, who knows what the situation is, but those are definitely some of the situations that are out there. And I'm buying those products. And I'm also living in America, right? Where, we are the strongest, most dominant warrior nation to have ever existed in the history of humanity, and there's many wonderful things about this country, but also some questionable things, right? And questionable things that they've done on a global scale, and the inequalities in economies around the world, and how those in power like to stay in power, and the actions that they take to stay in power. And I am benefiting by living in this economy and by having been born in this economy. And so that good-hearted nature, not wanting to harm others, every day we harm others, right? And I don't know if it's like that where you are, but, the clothes you're buying or the glasses you're wearing. And so, yes, we would all like it to be different, but that's not the game we were born into.
Yeah.
And so how do we get, and that's kind of like the crux of some of the biggest struggles and challenges in our world, is like one individual or one group of people taking more for themselves at the expense of others. And it's unfortunate about our species that we don't have more of a collective, I think of honeybees, right? Kind of all of them working together for the greater common good. That we don't have more of that perspective as a species.
Yeah.
That there's more of that isolation. My little tribe got more, and to heck with those people over there. But so good-hearted nature, wanting to make money without harming others, and having an integrity. Those are great intentions, but at the same time, it's a spectrum. And so at one end of that spectrum, you could be really harmful. And you could be a totalitarian, megalomaniac dictator who, through might exploits others to maintain power and get their own benefit. That's one end of the spectrum. And at the other end of the spectrum is you could try to be Gandhi or Martin Luther King or, Mother Teresa or whoever, right? And that's very, Nelson Mandela, that's very admirable and commendable. And it's also, I think, a really hard road to walk, and you might walk it and not ever achieve anything. Those are very few people that come to mind that we could say that about. And so that's also kind of tragic that it's hard to kind of affect change, maybe at that large of a level. I don't know. But, and then somewhere in between, we all have to make our stand. And so, yeah, it's natural and normal that's the game we've been born into, that it's not an equal world and people are going to be harmed by our actions. And that's just part of living because of the inequalities in this world. So I don't know what you do with that other than you bring it into your awareness and make your peace with it, and then choose where you make your stand. How much am I going to help others? How will I help others? And so that's maybe the last thing I'll say about this is that's actually, again, back to community. One of the things that makes us happy is when we're doing things which actually help others.
Yeah.
And so when you're living, like aligning your career, like I chose teaching because I enjoyed helping others. That fulfilled me. But I chose that over a couple other options that were available to me that were more industry. Let's win and get stuff for ourselves, and who cares about others, right? I walked away from a job working for a Wall Street company because I had ethical concerns about how they were treating other people. And that's when I stepped into academia and teaching. I would have made a lot more money if I'd stuck with the Wall Street company, but it didn't fulfill me as much as helping others.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's useful, but that's what came to me when you shared what was important to you.
Absolutely, yeah. That's great.
And then about students, you wanted to know about what makes a good student?
Yeah, what do you look for them? Like, what are the good traits that you actually expect from a student to have?
Oh, like I'm there, it's your life, it's your journey, and open ears and an open mind.
Yeah.
And take what you want and leave the rest, and live for yourself and do what's important for you and make your own decisions. And don't expect me to tell you what to do. But at this point in your life, when you reach college and late teens and early 20s, people just, starting to make decisions of what they need and what they want, and helping them see that that's what they need to start doing in their life. I don't know. I mean, anybody who is willing to listen is a good student. And, the extent that, words impact them is not my concern. It's just the fact that they're showing up. So anybody who shows up, no matter how small the intention to learn, anybody who shows up to learn is a good student. It's commendable. It's the noblest of all endeavors to improve yourself and to, try to become a better person. Like, what higher endeavor could each of us apply ourselves to try to improve ourselves, no matter how small that flame is within somebody? So if they even only show up kind of and sit in the back with their baseball cap low and with a surly attitude, they are at least there. That's awesome. There's some small flickering glimmer of a flame within them to learn, to improve themselves. And that's great. So, anytime you have the smallest flickering inkling to acquire new knowledge and become a better person, that's what makes a good student. That's what makes a good person.
Great.
That's the quest in life.
And also, like, from the principle number one, if I'm not wrong, the same thing that you mentioned, like, I think it resonates me back, that grit, right? The willingness to learn. That's the one thing that literally stuck in my brain from the long time. That's the thing. Like, I mean, from the Angelina Duckworth, right? She said the same thing, like, willing to learn, and the grit is the one that really matters. Letting you to go.
That's another super good answer. Like, I mean, Angela Duckworth's work and grit.
Yeah.
Just like, you stick with it. Like, you just keep going. What's the alternative? Like, you're just going to watch TV all the time? Like, okay, that gets old. Try to move forward some each day in some good way, or keep it all running well. Learn something each day, exercise, sleep, eat well, socialize, contribute, enjoy it all. Don't try to get to some place where you finally have the yacht with billions of dollars, because, what's that going to be? I mean, it's trite and it's cliche, but it's also true. It's, it's the journey that matters, but not only the journey, also the destination that you set. You set a good destination, you set a skillful destination, you move in a skillful direction, and you enjoy the journey while you're doing it. You don't live, you don't wait to live for that moment when you finally reach the destination. You got to live the whole journey. I don't know.
Yeah, totally gets in. Yeah, super. So I think I delayed you a bit for the sleep.
Oh yeah, it's time for me to get to bed. I will say this last bit about identity. You asked me about the name.
Yeah, I forgot about it. Yeah.
What part of what you learn, what I've learned, is, so if you look at the spiritual path in life, or if you look at morality, or if you look at maturity, right? All three of those, spirituality, morality, and maturity, all three of them are a journey from self-absorption to selflessness. And so in spirituality, you look at great spiritual leaders, and they aren't there saying, hey, look at me, I'm so awesome. Check out my fancy car, my big watch. Look at the diamond on my ring, right? Like, ain't I the greatest prophet that ever walked the earth? And then cue the rap song of I'm Jesus Christ, yo, I got it going on, right? Look at all my followers, 10 billion people on Instagram, right? Like that's not a saintly spiritual person, right? A spiritual person's kind of like, it's not about me. It's about everybody else, right?
Yeah.
In Christianity, they say, not my will, thy will, right? You kind of give up the self, right? And in Buddhism, it's kind of like, selflessness. You relinquish the self finally. That's kind of like higher spirituality. So the path of spirituality is from self-absorption to selflessness. The path of maturity, right? Maturation is from self-absorption to selflessness. When you're born, you are completely self-absorbed. I want milk. I want to sleep. Give it to me now. I'm crying, right? Everybody has to tend to you. You're not tending to other people. But as you mature, you start to grow up from being the center of attention that everybody has to focus on you. You start to become more independent. You start to help other people. And then when you get older, you're the one helping the younger people, right? And then finally, you get towards the end of your life, you enter, literally psychologically, you enter the generativity phase where you're giving things to others. And then finally, you have to let go of all of your life. So you, in maturation, go from self-focused to not as focused on the self to more selflessness. So that's spirituality, that's maturation. It's also morality. And so morality is very much like, am I only thinking about myself or am I thinking about others? And so a sociopath, which is like antisocial personality disorder, somebody who's only thinking of themselves, they'll kill you for their watch. That's not a very moralistic perspective, right? Morals are standards for behavior. And if you wonder if there's an absolute morality, what I finally concluded is that because we're social creatures and we need to belong socially, absolute morality requires us to consider others. And so when you're not considering others, you don't have good standards of behavior, good morality, skillful morality. So a sociopath, totally self-absorbed. Higher levels of morality, and this resonates with Kohlberg's theory of moral development, higher levels of morality are like, I'm thinking of others in my actions. I might go break into the drugstore and steal some drugs, but I'm stealing them because I can't afford to buy them and I need them for a family member who's sick. Like my actions are not criminal. They might be criminal, but they're not amoral. Like they're a higher level morality. I'm thinking of others. So spirituality, morality, and maturity are all this spectrum from self-absorption to selflessness. And so part of the name thing, Todd versus Enzo, is, I think it's really interesting to kind of not be fixed tight on one's identity as a spiritual practice, to try to let go of some of your own identity. And so sometimes when I teach meditation, I'll tell people, choose a spiritual name, right? Like you've had this name that was given to you when you were born. You've had it your whole life, probably for most people, right? Let's just for fun. Let's loosen that up a little bit, right? Let's not have it be so fixed and so tight, not so identified with it. I am Todd, right? Everybody, let's just choose a different name. Let's choose a spiritual name, whatever that might be. And just have that for fun. And you could either tell people about it or not tell people about it. And so, for me, I wanted a name that kind of spoke to what one of my goals is in life. And one of my goals is to have these higher realizations, to cultivate wisdom. And so Enzo in Japanese stands for kind of wisdom, enlightenment, awakening. And so that's the name I chose. But that's how that came about. I like it too. I think I like it better than Todd. I'm kind of tired with Todd. I've had that one for a long time.
Yeah. Totally.
You let me know if you come up with one for yourself.
Definitely, but I'm not sure. But this is the one that I'm using it from my birth. They named it me Teja, and that's it. Like no way, like no change. And That's a birth name that they give me, and I have I have no control over it again at the moment. I didn't ask my mom to name me something like Todd, like still stylish, or like that. So it went up like
well,
that.
It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to think, if I could choose my own name, what would I choose? Right? Because it kind of in some ways lets you know that you get to define your life, like all of it. Like you are now in charge. Like you want a different name? Great. Choose a different name. No big deal. But it also shows you how attached we are to identity.
Yeah.
Right? Like, wow, what will people think of me if I choose a different name? That'll create confusion, Like people might think I'm weird, right? Like, or I might think there's just all these things come up when you think about choosing a different name.
Awesome.
All right, Teja.
Awesome. So, I think it's gonna be. I mean, if I delay you more, I think you're gonna be sleepy again.
Yes, it's been good talking. You got anything else?
If you wanted to if you want to share something to the listeners before we wind the call, please feel free to share with them.
I don't know. I'm pretty tired, but it's late here. I think we've given a lot of good information.
Absolutely.
Be happy. Be happy. Cultivate happiness in your life, whatever it takes. I found nothing better than that to live for. So just the exhortation to find happiness, seek it out. Be happy. Share joy with others, share a smile with others, find something funny to share with somebody. It's all too easy to be serious and to get lost in the drudgery and the droning of work, and of productivity and trying to get things done. So I'd share that. And then the other thing I'd share is that maybe some programmers will be listening to this. Yeah. And maybe you are a programmer. It sounds like you are, Teja. But I've got an idea that I want to build, and I don't have time to build it. I find that actually coding stuff, I could teach coding really well, but I'm not a professional developer. And so to actually create stuff, you need to kind of do it day in and day out as you're living. For me, I just kind of teach the intro class over and over again every semester. So I don't have those skills as a professional dev. But I've got an idea that I want to develop. So if there's anybody out there who's looking to collaborate on something, I'm pretty good about thinking about the customer side of it and getting users, which is a job in and of itself. But I have this idea for, that I want, and I'm not happy with the solutions that are out there right now. So if there's anybody that's interested in such a thing, message me on Twitter.
Cool. Definitely. Yeah. I think you'll be getting, maybe if they are interested, they'll be right down to you on Twitter. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Superb. Yeah. Thank you so much, Todd. I mean, it's been an amazing conversation that I really ever had. A lot of wisdom, a lot of valuable information, a lot of insights, and a lot of exploitation, like all your professional and personal life, that being a lifelong learnings. And I highly recommend everyone to go check out greatercommons.com, and you can go to the journey, which is so much connected to me, and then go there. It's completely free, and then try it out and look at the information that Todd is being providing. There's such a huge value, so that it will be surely helping you as well on making any decisions, on the way you be there, on talking to others, and the way you think, act, and communicate anything. So it's just a short course. It takes a bit time up again, but that's an amazing, hard things takes time. Then it takes really good time, and then you'll be getting a really good results, because those insights will completely fit into your life. That's the thing that I would like to share in the end. And thank you so much for joining us, Todd. It's been an immense pleasure for me to have you here, and thank you so much.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. I've enjoyed it too. The last thing I'll also say is on YouTube, I have a YouTube Todd McLeod personal channel where I teach meditation. Yeah. So have you checked that out?
I did. I've been. Yeah. I know you with the same dress with a bunny, and then you meditate there for quite a long time, and I've been listening to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to check out the meditation, can. All right, Teja.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay.
I've got a friend named TJ, so I just accidentally called you TJ.
It's okay.